This week we're doing Suede by NxWorries, which is made up of Anderson, Paak, and Knxwledge. And they've only put out a couple of tracks, but I've really liked all of them. And this song in particular was like my #1 favorite for all of 2015. So even though there's not a whole lot going on, I just had to do it. So let's go ahead and hear the main sample for the track from the song The Bottle by Gil Scott-Heron.
1, 2, 3, 4.
So Knxwledge did two things to this sample. First, he pitched it up about 1/3 of a semitone. And then more importantly, he time stretched it. And he time stretched it a lot. He slowed it down to about half of its original speed. And before digital sampling, before we had computers and software in the mix, if you wanted to adjust the speed of a sample, you'd have to play with the pitch. And so you'd speed it up, get that weird chipmunk sound if you wanted it to go faster, or you'd slow it down and get those like demonic chopped and screwed sounds if you wanted it to go slower. But computers, they can kind of do all sorts of stuff. They can make guesses and fill in the blanks as to what it would sound like if you actually slowed it down, or they can cram it all together and actually speed it up. And a lot of the sound that this sample has comes from those guesses that the computer makes. So he slows it down to half of its original speed. It has to fill in a lot of the blanks. And it's really not that great at guessing at what goes in those blanks. So you get this kind of weird, robotic, computery sound. And that's where a lot of the sound in this sample comes from. Let's listen. And it's crazy to me how like the whole groove from the track comes from this super upbeat song just slowed way down. And then how it was slowed down, you get all these imperfections, and it really brings out this kind of wonky groove, which the drums play right into. You've got this hi-hat, the main kick, a little boomier kick, and the snare. And Knxwledge's drums aren't really about being super intricate or super precise or anything like that. It's just about finding the feel of the track and really leaning into it and seeing where that takes you. So let's see how these drums fit on top of the sample. And that's pretty much all there is to this track. I mean, there's not a ton going on, but the way it all comes together with the sample and the drums and then Anderson on top of all that, it's pretty much flawless execution if you ask me. So that was #1 song of 2015. And I'll play the finished version in just a minute here, but before I do, I want to remind you, as always, to head over to beatbreakdown.net, where I've got project files for download in Machine, FL Studio, and Ableton file formats. And where I've got my tutorial series going called the Start From Scratch series. It'll teach you everything you need to know to get started making beats with just your computer. You don't have to go buy a ton of software, a ton of gear, anything like that. You can get started today. So head on over there to beatbreakdown.net, check that out, and I'll see you on the next episode of Beat Breakdown.
Thank you.